If you just bought yourself a DJI Neo 2 or you've had one for a while, then this video is going to be for you. Because over the last few months, I've been using the Neo 2 in all sorts of situations. And today I'm going to share with you 100 tips I've learned along the way. And I've split them across 2 videos so you don't have to sit through one really long video. Now, some of the tips are for complete beginners, whilst others are little tricks that even experienced owners might know. And I will cover everything from the drone only mode, the DJI Fly app, quick shots, resolution and frame rates, voice and gesture control, battery life, flying with just your phone, using a dedicated controller, and finally how you can sleep easy at night. And before I get started, the video isn't sponsored by DJI. And I have tried to be as thorough as possible, but with a video of this size, I may have left something out. And to be honest with you, there's no need to tell me if I have. It's not going to make me feel any better, just knowing that I've wasted 2 weeks of my life. Now, as I said, everything I'm about to share comes from my own experience with the Neo 2. So if you do enjoy honest drone reviews, tutorial tips, I'd really appreciate it if you could give the video a like and subscribe and turn on the notifications. Now, one of the biggest reasons people buy the DJI Neo 2 is because you don't need a phone or a controller. You can just take it straight out of your bag, press the mode button, launch it from your hand, and within seconds you're going to be filming. And that means it's perfect for holidays, family days out, walks, or simply capturing memories. So tip 1 is all about using the drone only mode for the right job. Now, drone only is all about speed and convenience. And if I'm out walking, hiking, cycling, that's the mode I use the most. But if I'm filming a YouTube video and I want full control of the camera, then obviously I will switch to the DJI Fly app or the controller. The trick is simply using the right flying method for the shot that you want. And really, you need to learn every flight mode. Now, one mistake I see all the time is people finding one flight mode that they like and then using that and never trying any others. Each flight mode does create a different type of shot. Follow is brilliant for everyday tracking. Rocket is great for revealing a location. Circle creates a dramatic orbit, and direction track gives you a much more cinematic side-on view. So try spending an afternoon using them all. And the more familiar you become with each mode, the more creative your videos are going to be. And when you are out, try starting every flight in an open area. Now, the Neo 2 does track incredibly well, but you don't need to make life difficult for it. So try and avoid launching next to trees, buildings or parked cars. Give it an open space and you'll avoid a lot of the tracking problems before they even start. And also give the drone time to lock onto you. Now, this caught me out a lot when I first bought the Neo 2. As soon as I took off, I'd start walking. So instead, try waiting until the red light comes on before moving away. It's only going to take a few seconds, but it will make tracking much smoother and far more reliable. And obviously you need to think about your background as well. Now, the drone isn't just filming you, it's filming everything that's behind you too. So before you launch, take a quick look around. It could be that you could move a few meters to one side and then having the sea behind you instead of a car park, or use a woodland path instead of an empty field. Sometimes that small change can completely transform the shot. And remember as well to walk naturally. Once the drone starts following you, trust it. Stop looking over your shoulder every few seconds, just try and walk normally. And the footage will look much more relaxed and natural. And remember as well to use the right tracking position. So for follow mode, I normally use flat or high with a distance of medium or far. And that's going to give the drone more room to react, keeps you better framed and improves the obstacle avoidance. It's also going to reduce the amount of sky that's in the shot, so your exposure stays much more consistent. Plus, if you are cycling or moving fast, it gives the drone more time to react. And when you are doing it, plan your route. Before you launch, think about where you're going to walk. Try and avoid low branches, narrow gaps and busy paths where possible. Giving the drone a clear route makes tracking smoother and saves you a lot of frustration later on. And remember as well to stay within the tracking range. Now, one mistake beginners make is trying to outrun the drone. It can only track you if it can actually see you, so don't disappear behind any trees or around sharp corners. Keep a steady pace and the tracking will be much more reliable. And then when you are using some of the tracking modes for orbit, for example, you want to try to do this from the side. Now, just like the follow mode, where you start orbit makes a big difference. Starting from the side or the rear, ideally with the drone facing towards the sun, is going to be the best option. That way, the best part of the shot is always going to be in the middle of the clip instead of right at the beginning or at the end, and it means you're going to get much more usable footage. And let the drone finish the shot. This is a mistake I see all the time. As soon as the drone starts coming back, people try and catch it. Instead, let the quick shot finish completely until it's hovering in front of you, and then when the red light has gone out, then take the drone. You'll end up with a much cleaner clip and you won't accidentally stop the recording before it's finished. Now when it does come back to you, remember to master the palm landing. Now I know that palm landing doesn't sound very exciting, but once you've started using it, you'll wonder why you ever go back to ground landing. And it's perfect conditions like sand, wet grass or gravel, anywhere where you don't want dirt getting into the motors or on the camera. So you just need to hold your hand out flat and let the drone land itself. Another tip you need to do is to film in good lighting. Now when you're filming drone only, you don't have any manual camera controls, so the good lighting becomes even more important. Wherever you can, film in the early morning or later in the afternoon when the light is softer, and try and keep the sun behind the drone so you're well lit, and avoid the harsh midday sun if possible. Good lighting is going to improve your footage more than any other camera setting. Now, as I said, drone only is brilliant, but it's not the only answer for every situation. If you want to see exactly what goes on and what the camera sees, then you need to change the settings or fly manually, and then it's going to be time to connect through to your phone. You still don't need to carry a controller, but you will get a live view with more flight options and access to the drone settings. Now, if you do this, you want to make sure, first of all, that you have got your firmware updated. The DJI Fly app is also where you're going to update the drone. Now DJI does regularly release bug fixes and sometimes add new features, so it's worth checking every now and again for any firmware updates, and I would recommend updating it at home rather than over the Wi-Fi just before a flight. Now when you're using the Fly app, there is one feature on there that you really need to learn, and that's where Find My Drone is. Hopefully you're never going to need it, but if the drone lands somewhere unexpected, Find My Drone will show its last recorded position. And it's worth knowing where the feature is before something goes wrong. I've got a full video covering this up here if you'd like to know more. Another thing you need to do is to set up the quick shots before you leave the house. So before heading out, spend a minute setting up the quick shots preferences in the DJI Fly app. Things like tracking distance and flight height can all be adjusted in advance. That way, when you arrive, you're ready to launch instead of wasting time and batteries changing the settings. And then once you're using the DJI Fly app, you can choose the recording resolution. Now, if you've got enough storage, I would recommend filming in 4K. Even if you're going to export in 1080p, you're normally going to get a sharper image and more flexibility when editing if you use 4K. Also try and choose your frame rate before you take off. Now, you can record in 30, 50, 60 or even 100 frames a second. And for most of my videos, I tend to use 30 frames because it gives natural looking motion. But if I know I'm going to be slowing down the footage later on, I will tend to switch to 60 frames a second before I take off. It's much easier to decide before the flight than wish you changed it after the flight. Also, because you're using your phone, then you can use your phone as a camera monitor. And one of the biggest advantages of this is that you can see exactly what the drone sees. So instead of guessing your composition, you can frame your shot properly and spot any distractions before you hit record. And then when you have finished recording, don't forget to review your footage before you leave. So this means that you can check your images to make sure that they are sharp and well framed and that everything's actually been recorded. If something isn't quite right, it's far easier to reshoot while you're still there rather than having to go back. And then when you've done this, download your best clips. Now, if you've captured a shot and you're really pleased with it, download it to your phone straight away while you're out. It's going to give you an instant backup, and it means that it's ready to edit or share as soon as you get home. And also flying with the DJI app, you need to know the limits of manual flight. The DJI Fly app does give you much more control than drone only, but remember that you are flying only with virtual joysticks. Now they will work well, but they're never as smooth or precise as using real sticks, and you are going to be limited by the Wi-Fi range. So just keep those limits in mind when you are flying manually. Another thing to remember is to turn your phone sideways. Now this one's simple, but it does make a big difference. Always fly with your phone in landscape mode. That way you're going to get a much larger view, making it easier to frame your shots, judge the distance and spot any obstacles, and practice before you actually start recording. So before you hit the record, spend a minute or two getting used to the virtual joysticks. And then once you're comfortable and how they respond, then start filming. This means again that your movements will be smoother and so will your footage. So that's 25 in and only another 75 to go. And hopefully you've already picked up a few tips. Now, I'm not being sponsored, and that does mean I have to say all that stuff about liking and subscribing, but in all honesty, it does mean that I can continue to make my own videos. It does really help with the channel, and it lets me do and say what I really think about the drones that I review. And as I said at the start, I also have a tip on how you can sleep easy at night. And that tip is to support the channel a little bit further. So I've left a link for Buy Me a Coffee in the description below. There's absolutely no pressure, mainly because I don't know where any of you live. But every donation does help me spend more time testing drones and producing videos like this one. And that could be a benefit for everyone. Even £1 or £2, dollars or euros, when clubbed together, will help towards the purchase of new equipment, which otherwise would be out of my reach. And after all, if you have heard me say this and you haven't switched off, then you must be finding something useful in my ramblings. So if you could consider that. And back to the video. And now we're back onto number 26. So we're still using the manual flight, and my tip for this is to use gentle thumb movements. Virtual joysticks are more sensitive than a physical controller. So instead of making large movements, use small, gentle inputs. The smoother your thumbs move, the smoother your footage is going to be. And try and keep your fingers on the screen. Try not to lift your thumbs off the virtual joysticks when you're flying, because keeping contact with the controls helps you make smoother movements and avoid sudden jerks. And you could also try combining two movements together. So for example, you could combine a gentle forward movement with a slow yaw or a climb. Even with virtual joysticks, combining movement creates a much more cinematic footage than simply flying in a straight line. But don't try to overcomplicate your shots. The DJI Fly app is brilliant for simple cinematic movements. Long straight flies, gentle reveals, slow tracking shots usually look far better than trying to do too many complicated moves at once with the virtual joysticks. And you also want to try flying closer than you think. And this is because you haven't got the precision of a controller, and judging the distance is much harder. So rather than flying a long way, try and stay a little bit closer so you can clearly see both the drone and the subject you're filming. And you also need to know when to switch to a controller. The DJI Fly app is great for casual flying. It's simple, convenient and surprisingly capable. But if you're flying regularly, creating YouTube videos, then I would recommend using a dedicated controller. It's going to give you smoother, greater precision, and it really takes flying the DJI Neo 2 to a new level. But before we move on to controllers, there are a few more ways to control the drone. One of the features that really stands out on the Neo 2 is voice control. Now, it may sound like a gimmick, but after using it for a while, I have found it to be genuinely useful. Whenever your hands are busy, voice control really comes into its own. So you need to turn on voice control before you need it. Before heading out, make sure that the voice control on the DJI app is enabled. And it's easier to spend 30 seconds setting it up at home than having to do this and searching through the menus when you're actually out filming. Also, learn the commands. Voice control works best when you already know what to say. So try spending again a few minutes learning the commands right before your first flight. Once they become second nature, you're going to spend more time getting the shot and less time remembering what words you actually need to say. And also, speak clearly but not loudly. One mistake people make is shouting at the drone, and you don't need to. Just speak in a clear voice that's natural. Only raise your voice if it's particularly windy or noisy where you are. And as I said, using the voice commands are really useful when your hands are full. And this is where it really shines. Now, it could be you carrying a backpack, holding walking poles, or riding a bike, and being able to control the drone without stopping is incredibly convenient. It's one of those features you don't realise you'll use until you've actually tried it. Now, you could also try using an external microphone, but remember your phone still needs to be able to hear you. If it's buried in your pocket or surrounded by background noise, it's going to struggle to recognise any of the commands. So a wired or a wireless mic can make a big difference. And also know when not to use it. Now, voice control isn't always the best option. In crowded places, strong winds, or when you need some more precise control, you are better off using the DJI Fly app or a dedicated controller. So think of voice control as another useful tool, but not a replacement. And like some of the other modes, practice before you rely on it. Like every Neo 2 feature, voice control does get better with practice. So spend 5-10 minutes trying the commands in an open area. And once they become second nature, you will probably end up using voice control far more than you expected. So voice control is fantastic when you want to keep your hands free. But there is another feature that's just as useful if you create content on your own, and that's voice record. And use voice record for walk and talk videos. So the Neo 2 doesn't just record the video, it can record your voice as well. So whether you're filming a review, a travelogue or a tutorial, voice record lets you explain exactly what you're doing as you fly. And this means it'll make your videos feel much more natural and personal. Now, one clever feature the voice record has is that it reduces the drone propeller noise, leaving your voice much clearer. It's not going to replace a professional microphone, but for quick videos or social media content, it does a surprisingly good job. And just like voice control, you need to speak clearly and naturally. So there's no need to shout, just again speak at your normal pace and avoid turning away from your phone. The clearer your voice, the better the audio is going to be. So this means it's perfect for solo creators. So if you film on your own, voice record saves you from carrying any extra audio equipment. For tutorials, travel videos or behind the scene clips, it's a quick and easy way to add commentary while keeping your setup lightweight. But remember, only record the audio when you actually need it. And this is because the Neo 2 has limited storage and audio files are going to take up some extra space. So if you don't need voice record, then switch it off. If you do, then you need to export the footage through the DJI Fly app. And this is because the video and the voice files are stored as separate files. So if you download them directly to the Fly app, they are combined automatically for you, and then you can transfer them straight to your computer. Otherwise, you're going to need to sync them together manually during the editing. Now, if you don't want to speak to the drone at all, there is another option. The Neo 2 can also recognise hand gestures, allowing you to capture photos and videos without touching a phone or a controller. And that's called gesture control. Unlike voice control, I don't tend to use it on every flight. But when the situation is right, it is really a quick, simple and surprisingly useful way to fly the drone. So I would suggest learning the gestures. So before heading out, spend a few minutes learning what each gesture does. Then once you've tried them a few times, they are quickly going to become second nature. But remember to face the drone, because gesture control can only work if the drone can actually see you. So remember to face the camera, keep your hands visible and avoid blocking them with your body or any other objects. Also, give yourself some space. Gesture control does work best in an open area, and if you're surrounded by people, trees or obstacles, the drone may struggle to recognise the gestures consistently. Now, as you know, flying drones isn't a fashion show, and God knows I'm not really a style guru. I tend to wear shorts and t-shirts all year round, even during the winter. But wearing clothing that stands out really makes a difference. The Neo 2 uses AI to recognise and track you. So if your clothing blends into the background, tracking can be less reliable. You don't need to wear bright orange, although it is my favourite colour. And unfortunately, when I do, it's usually followed by the words, "For God's sake, grow up," coming from my wife. But wearing colours with contrast that go against your surroundings simply makes it easier for the drone to recognise you. And this tip is where I use gesture control the most. So use gesture control for selfies, and I don't just mean photos. If you're travelling alone or you don't want to hand your phone to someone else, gesture control makes it easy to grab a quick selfie or a short video. It's also great for group photos because everyone can be in the picture. So don't rush the gesture. One mistake I made when I first started using gesture control was moving too quickly. Make the gesture clearly and then hold it for a few seconds, and that's going to give the drone enough time to recognise what you're asking it to do. But you also need to know when to use something else. So like voice control, gesture control is brilliant for quick photos and short clips, but it isn't always the best situation. If you need precise framing, manual flying or full camera control, then you should really switch over to the DJI Fly app or a dedicated controller. So think of gesture control as the quickest and easiest option, but not necessarily the most powerful. Okay, so that's the end of part 1. In part 2, I'm going to be covering battery health, safety settings, using the controller, pro mode, cruise control, button customization, flying over water and a lot more. So if you want to get even more out of your DJI Neo 2, I'll see you there. And as always, nobody has paid me to make this video or tell me what to say. Everything I've shared comes from my own experience of using the DJI Neo 2 with one aim, and that's to give you some honest advice and practical tips that actually work. So if you have found the video useful and you would like to support the channel, as I said earlier, there's a buy me a coffee link down in the description below. And again, as I said, even $1 or $2 collectively helps me buy new equipment, test more drones and make more videos like this. And of course, there's absolutely no pressure. Simply watching, liking and subscribing already helps the channel enormously. But if you did want to go one step further, I would really appreciate it. And thanks for watching, and I'll see you now in part 2.